And we are live. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Finale, and this is Real Estate Talk TGIF. I had to put in my broadcast glasses on, and we are here with another one of real estate's greats, George Morris, who is I believe, the CEO and founder of Century 21 Everest Group out in Utah. George's company has always been one of the top offices, if not the top office in the Century 21 system worldwide. I come to be familiar with him through my years with Century 21. And after that, by watching him grow and watching him what he does. George, thanks so much for coming on this broadcast.
Absolutely. Excited to be here with you, Dave.
Well, this is going to be fun. We have a great conversation about the journey, about what's different and why you've done so well, and how we can help other agents in this time and any time in real estate. But before we go, Nelson, hit the videotape.
Real estate agents, are you looking to acquire clients consistently to grow your business and income for a great lifestyle? Well, this is Dave Finale, and I'm here to bring you the Real Estate Skill Builder broadcast, Real Estate Talk TGIF, brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder and the Modern Agent team.
And again, here we are. This is Real Estate Talk TGIF episode 322. That is 318 weeks in a row, more than 6 years. We're real excited about what we keep doing, and we keep having great some. We have local agents that are great. We've had great coaches. We've had great people such as George Morris, CEO and founder of Century 21 Everest out in Utah. And we are just so damn happy that we're able to continue giving back to the community. This broadcast is brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder, my coaching company, as well as Align, the team I am the growth manager for here in Northern New Jersey. George, thanks so much for coming on today.
Absolutely. Excited to be with you, Dave.
So, George, I always start this with a question, and I'm going to start with the same question. Everybody gets the same question. Don't worry, most people do get it wrong. The question is, what does TGIF stand for?
I'm going to say, thank God it's Friday.
You are very close, and I want to thank you for trying. It is, thank God it's finale. My broadcast, my show. But it is. It never was supposed to happen like that, but it just is. Thank God it's finale. Here we are. It is episode 322, and we're happy to have you along with everybody else we've ever had. And, you've got a great story about how you got into the business, why you got into the business. Let's face it, George, I say this almost every week. We don't grow up saying to mom and dad, hey, I want to be a real estate agent when I grow up. That's usually probably not in the mix there. But your story, talk to me about your journey, how you got into real estate and how you've run so many companies and been so successful throughout the years, and how it all relates to our business.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, it's a pleasure to be with you. So my journey starts actually 30 years ago, this last May.
Wow.
I sat there with a lawnmower, or I should say walking with a lawnmower, and I watched a gentleman by the name of Austin Haywood, a great agent in Utah. He's actually retired at this point and doing his thing and whatnot. But in relationship to him, I met him. I was literally mowing his lawn. I was 21 years old, and I saw him pull up in that brand new, awesome Lexus LS 400, and I said to myself, oh my goodness, what does this guy do? And of course, as time went on, I got to see very closely what he did. And I came up to him. I said, hey, I'm just curious, what do you do? And of course, he said, I'm selling real estate. And I have to tell you, at that moment, this is what came into my mind. And I think it's really a message for everybody, because oftentimes we can get discouraged, we can get off, we can think that these markets and these challenges that we've been dealing with. And I said these words literally under my breath, and it was, well, if he can do it, so can I. And as I was standing there, I looked at his nice car, and I looked at my 1978 Dodge Ram Charger that was rusted out to the hilt. And the rest kind of is history, man. I went and got my license shortly thereafter and just fell in love with the game of real estate. And my first year in real estate, I was fortunate enough to have sold 33 homes. There's lots of people who do more. Certainly, we know there's lots of people who do less. But man, for at that time, I shortly there turned 22 in May of 94, and had my license by July of 94. And so last month was truly 30 years for me in this business. And it has been a tremendous ride from the standpoint of selling 100 plus homes a year to building some of the largest organizations in the world for real estate. And so I feel very, very fortunate to have seen a lot, experience a lot, and help people take it to the next level.
So you get into the business, you build up yourself, and then you start by you go into owning company. Was Everest your first company? Was Everest was your entree into owning?
No. I actually, we haven't talked about that. So one of the things that I did, so I started moving along, and I love the fact, Dave, that obviously you're giving back to the community, you're coaching, you're training, you're elevating people at every level. And so for me, way back in the day when I first started in this industry, I was fortunate enough to have met a gentleman who really, again, was a broker, but he was also a coach. And it was the first time I'd really ever heard. I mean, I'd played a handful of athletics in my time, and I never really heard of coaching per se in business. Right. And we all know the impact of people that we put around us. And so shortly thereafter, I stayed in about a 5-year period of time. I stayed in this kind of 30, 28, 34, 33, and I'd stay in this transaction count for several years. And then I met him. And he got me to really wrap my brain around the idea. And he was a local guy here in Utah. He got me to wrap my brain really around what was possible. And so that very next year after meeting him, I started making, different goals. And I got to this point where I was selling a home a week. But the fundamental thing that he got me to realize was the connection between selling real estate and my own personal mindset, my belief system, the way I think, what I focus on. And really moving past this idea of, well, I don't feel like prospecting today, or I don't feel like calling my sphere or my database today. I don't feel like doing certain things. And what I concluded on way back in my mid-20s, or maybe I was 27, 28 years old when I met him, was if I can live my life based on what I'm supposed to do and not based on what I feel like doing. And the joke I've made for years, and now they're a little older and on their way, but I used to make fun of my 2 boys, and I would say, if I let my boys do what they want to do, all they're going to do is sit in our basement, play Fortnite, drink Mountain Dew, sleep in all day, and do literally nothing if I let them do what they feel like doing. And so the challenge is that can we get past what we feel like doing and do what we're supposed to do? So it was really the first time that I really realized that mindset and the ability to do what I'm supposed to do, the disciplines that are necessary. Then you wrap it up with a bunch of skill, which of course, not only this podcast, but all that you do, Dave, is about. And if you can get your mindset right, your skills right, and your disciplines, I have to tell you, if you can control those avenues, it's not almost going to matter what the market is going to do, because you will direct your business and your life from that standpoint, and you'll have success despite what markets are doing, whether their agents are doing, from that standpoint. So that really is what shifted the whole way that I think. And then from there, I went on, a few years later to buy the very company of my most, one of the great gifts of my life, my mentor, and it was a Realty Executives. I owned that for about 4 or 5 years. I sold it, and then shortly thereafter felt very, very strongly impressed that I needed to open up another company. Started as an independent as Everest, and then moved in just 2 years later to owning a Century 21 franchise.
So, I want to wrap around a couple of things that you talked about, anybody can sell real estate, and if they use their own personal mindset. I don't feel like, that's something that I hear all the time with a lot of different agents, right? So you said, if do you want to live life based on what you're supposed to do or what you want to do or what you feel like doing? I ask this of everybody, George. What's the switch? Is there a switch? Is it motivation? Is it just simply a mindset thought? Is it something that, I'm going to do it. This is my discipline. That's where I'm going to go.
Right.
Is that what it is? What is it?
Yeah. I think, Dave, one of the things I've realized is that you can have a lot of willpower and you can grind through things. But the thing that I've observed in the top producers, I've been fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with, some of we've talked about this, some of the number one teams in my
Right.
office is the number one team in the world for Century 21. for the last several years in California. When I owned those operations, we had a wonderful lady by the name of Tina Hare, who was making some great money, again, rose to the #1 agent in the world, rose to the mid-level team, #1 for Century 21, I should say. And so those things became paramount to observing that every single one of these people who rise to the very, very top of, let's just say, the game of life, whatever,
Right.
frankly, whatever the industry is, right? They had a reason why they were doing it. And as I observe in some of the most talented people on earth, and as you've seen, is that they have a reason why they're doing it. And oftentimes people will call that, hey, you got to figure out your why. But sometimes those whys are not so deep. Sometimes it's just, hey, I want to be #1. Hey, I want to, have my personal best. Hey, I want to pay off my house. Hey, I want to go on a great vacation. Hey, I want to be able to retire. But whatever those reasons are, they seem to be the moving catalyst to beginning the process of overcoming at days when we don't feel like really doing the job of real estate. We overcome it because our focus isn't on the pain of the moment. It's on the accomplishment and the achievement or the realization of the future. And when you can dance with that game and create better habits in relationship to specifically your reasons, the power behind that, and you move from that reason, then all of a sudden you start to be able to really shift your life into the direction that is not just aimless and whatever the markets are doing, but you begin to direct your life through those disciplines, those places of accountability, and those places of action. And that's a beautiful place, because all of a sudden, no matter where you are, you can have control of your economic future. So for me, it goes from reasons to disciplines. And when you combine the reasons and the discipline together, you truly become extraordinary at what you do. I've said for years, Dave, I'll leave it, and we can switch gears or we can stay on the subject, but ordinary people doing ordinary things consistently makes them extraordinary. And when I realized that personally, and no, I didn't read it in a book, someone didn't tell it to me. It was just realizing that the things that I was doing to sell 100+ homes a year, or to, at one point have 1,200 agents, 30 offices, multi-state, mortgage companies, title companies, escrow companies, all these different things. It was just simply my ordinary behaviors done consistently made me and makes others extraordinary. And sometimes I think we complicate the game of real estate at such extraordinary levels. And yet, although there's so much that has changed in real estate, the reality is so little has changed in real estate.
Absolutely.
And when people begin to realize that, like the efficiencies of technology, but in the end, the public has spoken that they still want an agent involved and they want to communicate with a human being. And that is a tremendous gift in the game of real estate, where people have kept trying to make it point, click, buy, and it's just not the game. The reality is it is a people game. It is a personal game. It is a communication game. And if we get that down, then we do some extraordinary things.
A while ago, I had Tom Ferry on, and I asked him, "What's the next disruptor?" This was a couple of years ago, and there really is. Okay, so Zillow was a disruptor for us back in the early 2000s, or right at the turn of the century. But what really? Because look, here's the thing: the difference was before we controlled the information. After that, we didn't control the information. To me, that was the disruptor. That was the only thing. You talked about technology. Technology doesn't change what we're doing. It might change a little bit of our methodology of how we're doing it,
right?
But it's not going to change the people to people, the belly to belly, the face to face. It's really not going to change it. Face to face has changed. Look at what we're doing. You're on the other side of the country, and I'm here in New Jersey, right? We had to have meetings like this. We can collaborate better. And one of the things that I firmly believe in is collaboration over competition. And this allows me to do it with the technology. Now, with the changes that we're seeing because of, let's just say, bad jobs by all of us over the last 20 years, 30 years, we're faced with changes. But really, is there a change? No, it's just a matter of how it's paperwork, right?
Yeah.
That makes it sound so little.
Right.
Think about it. What your form was before. What's your offer? What does your offer look like? What does your exclusive right to sell look like, right? it's just paper. So the rules are changing a little bit, but what we're doing, the face-to-face, the reason we're doing it and how we're going to grow our businesses really is not going to change. It really doesn't change. So as time moves on, I mean, real estate agents are, they get to this fear part, or people are saying that we're going to lose a lot of agents this year because of the changes that they really have to work. And I've said over the past few months, now we're really going to have value. And the biggest phrase that you've heard over the last few months is, well, you're going to have to bring value. Well, what were you doing before, right? What were you doing before? Were you a doorman just opening up doors? Anyway,
I was joking. Here's the bathroom. Shocking. Here's the kitchen. Wow.
Right.
Like, yeah, I mean, Dave, you know this. I mean, the thing that's interesting, I love the statement of John Maxwell, who said that leadership is nothing more, nothing less than influence. And whether it's, from Tom Ferry to others, right? In fact, I was listening to something of his not too long ago, and he said, isn't this what we were supposed to be doing before anyways? And so the barrier to entry is not now just passing your real estate license and getting the actual physical license. It's the barrier to entry is starting to be that, can you lead? One of the and if you can lead, and if you can direct, and if you can influence, and you can persuade, and you can wrap that all around the idea with the right intentions, which is to help and to assist people to getting what they want, great things are going to happen. The challenge, look, we can look all across the board, from social issues, political issues, religious issues, you name it, any issue. And it always comes down to the leadership. Right. And so the focus point for us as agents and brokers and owners and people who are trying to bring people to a place, whatever place that is, it's the ability to lead. And if you look at it, you start to realize that the greatest agents are the greatest leaders. And if you can connect the dots between salesmanship and leadership, you're going to do some extraordinary things. And if you align your mindset, your skills, your disciplines, you align it with a few systems and technologies, and all of a sudden you live and move with deep reasons and purpose, man, things are going to be extraordinary. I want to mention one thing, Dave.
Go ahead.
I think there's an epidemic, if you would say, and pandemic versus epidemic. And of course, we're all familiar in so many words, but a pandemic is short-lived. An epidemic stays forever. And so from a standpoint of an epidemic, one of the things that I've observed specifically in real estate agents is to consistently look outside of them for either all the rationalization and all of the reasons why or if they're going to succeed. I mean, even though we've had a little short run here just recently, last, let's just say 5 business days of some positive things in regards to interest rates, we will look at things like rates, unemployment, what other agents are doing, other offices are doing, other companies are doing, other brokers are doing, what the inventory is, what the prices are, and we will focus on everything outside of us except the one thing that can fix it. I have a son who just got into business a year ago, and I said, here's the good news. You are the problem if you're not selling real estate, no matter what the market is. I said, but here's the other good news. You're also the solution. And if we recognize that we're the solution to the way in which we sell real estate, the abundance of people who want to buy or sell, and the way in which we approach that, because no matter what, look, Dave, we know this. People, and this may sound tragic, but people are going to die, creates real estate transactions. People will divorce, creates real estate transactions. People will get job transfers. Again, real estate transactions. People will pay off a home, want to invest, first-time home buyers. The list goes on and on, despite good or bad markets, that real estate will always be sold. But it is the top leaders in the industry who have the greatest influence, who aren't a secret agent, who actually go out, speak to people, whether it's by phone or by door or however you choose to approach it, that if you can talk to people, you can recognize that ultimately you are the solution, and you stop looking outside of you for all of the answers and recognize that you are the answer to your own problem. All of a sudden you start to move again with great strength, power, certainty, and you start to move into this business, not with just luck of the draw, luck of the market, but you start moving into this market despite what it's doing, you're going to have tremendous success.
So again, we're going to come back to how do you get someone to see it when they say, well, you know what, I don't like making the calls, I don't like the prospect. How do you get to that person? I'm going to say that majority of those don't belong in the business, which is also extremely cold, but it's very true, right? So, I mean, you can give the tools and you can show people how to do it, but it's like bringing a horse to water. So you've got some really cool things that you do in your company that you are able to. I mean, look, obviously being the number one office in the world, you did something right. I mean, you know, call me crazy, but you know, you did something right.
Thank you.
And so talk to me about the difference where you think you make the difference. And I know how you make the difference, but I want you to tell me how you make the difference for agents and how others can make the difference for their agents as well, because that's a really important thing too, not just helping agents, but helping leaders as well.
You bet. Well, so Dave, for me, I think one of the things to recognize is that, look, the environment in which you create is always based on, and whether that's the environment of your home front, the environment of a business, the environment of if you have a team, the environment of just, even if it's just you as an individual agent, you have an environment.
Right.
Well, what begins to shape that environment? Yes, you can say the quote office space and things like that, but what really shapes it is the people that you surround yourself with.
Right.
And so one of the most important things I've recognized over time is that a lot of people will say, well, hey, I've got to surround myself with the right people. And they'll often say, but I can't find them. And the reality is that in most cases, they don't want to find them. And if you take, you know, the people you spend time with, look closely at who you spend time with, and you're going to realize that you're going to be very, very close. And there's all these, there's all these quotes in regards to this, but just to say the amount of money you're earning has everything to do with who you spend your time with. So for me, what I recognized long ago was to make sure that I had people around me that really wanted to grow. And growth is one of the most important aspects of a business. You're like the statement, either growing or dying, but if you grow. So how that growth for me, and you're asking how. So there's two things. When I was a young father and I had my little Ashley who just graduated from UCLA, and she's off on her way trying to she's not going to be in real estate. She wants to be a doctor, Dave. So she's out applying for medical school, doing her thing. And one time she even said, she goes, I'm smarter than you. I said, well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm smart enough to have enough money to actually pay for your UCLA education, which was very expensive. And she looked at me and she goes, you know what? That's a good point. I said, so my story is about her, but it was when she was like 7 or 8 or 9, she'd get into the car and I would say, sweetheart, did you brush your teeth this morning as we were on our way to school? And she would say, no, go back in and brush your teeth. And she would stomp up the stairs in our garage and she would come back out. And I realized, of course, like all little kids, then she started to fib just a little bit and she'd come back in and she'd say yes. And I'm like, that was too fast. I'm thinking she didn't. So then, of course, I'd get the fire-breathing dragon of smelling her breath and I'd almost, keel over her, but then I'd get her back out, get her back inside. And so here's the deal. I held her accountable. Now, here's the cool part. As time went on and she was about 11 or 12 years old, I said, sweetheart, did you brush your teeth? And she looked at me in complete disgust, almost as if, how could you even ask me such a question? And she looked at me and said, yes, of course I did. And then, of course, even smelled her breath. And I'm like, wow, she brushed her teeth. So in the beginnings of her brushing her teeth, what I would call is she had outside forces. I always like to say it this way. This is just a definition according to me. And it's this: you use outside forces to hold you accountable to do what you're supposed to do. But there comes a point that then, like little Ashley, when she was 11 or 12 years old, I asked her if she brushed her teeth and she said, of course, and gave me that little, like, how dare you? And I realized, she's become disciplined. But why has she become self-disciplined? And the answer was boys. That's it. She became self-disciplined because she had a reason. So when you start looking at two factors, accountability versus discipline, everybody wants to be disciplined. Everybody wants to say, oh, if I said it, I'm going to do it. But the fact of the matter is we don't do everything we're going to say, or do everything we say we're going to do. But accountability is the insurance policy for our dreams and our goals. I want to just repeat that. Accountability is the insurance policy for our dreams and goals. So whether it's that you do things like, one of my favorite things is I'll, get with an agent. I'll say, hey, here's the deal. You don't make, let's just say 100 contacts this week. Well, guess what? I need you then. And they commit and they say, yep, I want to do it. Yep, I'm there. Okay. And I'll say, all right, here's the deal. Last week you didn't do 100 contacts. We'll talk about the reasons and, they'll give some reason. And I'll say, look, if you don't make your 100 contacts, I need you to give a 5-minute message in front of our entire company this next week, and on why it is that you can't keep your word and why discipline is something maybe that you're incapable of doing. Of course, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing that. So magically in that next week or that week, they make their 100 contacts. Why? Because like you, a great coach, a great leader, someone steps in and helps someone be accountable. But as time goes on, you see a lot of the many great agents who will prospect, make the contacts, talk to the people despite what other people are doing on the outside of them, meaning even their own accountability, because they've become self-disciplined. And so the thing that we wrestle in our lives with is there's moments of our life where we're self-disciplined. As an example, if you had a great buyer or great seller appointment today, let's just say at 2 p.m., most people don't just blow it off and not show up. I mean, 99% of the people, if you have a great appointment, you're not going to miss it.
Right.
But boy, we can sure quickly miss a prospecting appointment or calling our sphere or our database or our centers of influence, our past clients, and we'll miss it. So again, the insurance policy is accountability from coaches to maybe other agents to other individuals, friends, but get accountability in place. And then as you move into these spaces of self-discipline, you can back off of that. But don't let your dreams go by the wayside just because you aren't at that moment able to say, I'm going to do it, so I'm going to do it. And if you will put discipline, if you'll put accountability in place, everything else will work out. You'll be fine. Because and I have a daily message I put out, Dave, too. But and what it is, it's just an audio, and I say at the end of it, every one of them, there is nothing about this business you can't learn, and there is nothing about this business you can't do. So go do it. Do it.
Great stuff, man. I want to add something about accountability. I believe that accountability is something that we all need, whether it's to ourselves or to somebody else. And you said the accountability is the insurance policy of dreams and goals. I also want that I learned, and I love this thing about accountability that I learned from John Cheplack is accountability is the highest form of love.
Love it. I haven't heard that. I love that, Dave.
I really like that, and we use that a lot. And people don't sometimes. I do accountability calls twice a week with people that I'm responsible for. And if there's 15 people that are supposed to show up, now there's several of them are just crushing it. So they don't come. I don't care. They don't need to be. They've already been accountable. They're doing 2-3 deals a month. So that's cool, right? But the ones that aren't, they fear coming to the accountability session because I'm going to ask them what they did. I'm going to ask them about their days, what they are. I know what they're doing because it's in our system, right? So the way we do stuff is when we have people always they're working in their CRM, which we have access to. And we
love it.
How many calls they made.
Accountability.
So when you said you did 100 calls and I look in, it says 33, I'm going to say, wait a minute, where's the other 67? Right? I can see what they're doing because it's accountability, which is why we require that, which is why we're real successful.
Yes,
right?
yes. And you're spot on, man. You're spot on.
It's a reason. It's reasons to discipline. And one of the things that you said is you talked about environment, and I'm sure you will agree with this statement. Environment always wins. Right? It always wins. I mean, no matter what situation is, you're the product of the 5 people you hang out with. We can go on with all these different sayings and all these different statements that you and I have heard and that we love and we love to use and we live by them because we've decided we're going to do something. I mean, you know what? As over the years when I've changed what I did when I don't own a brokerage anymore and I was getting into coaching and doing stuff, it took me a while to get to where I wanted to be. And you know what I found was that where I want to be is like, let's go. I'm disciplined more now than I ever was because I want to do something because of the environment that I'm in, right? You've created such a great environment. You've created such a great culture. I want you to talk about, how you've developed your company, and you have a saying that says, we are a personal development company that happens to sell real estate. Talk to me about your company. Talk to me about that statement that we talked about the other day, because this is really cool, and people should note this and should try to emulate it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dave. And by the way, I totally just love everything you just said in relationship to accountability. And it is an act of love. And I'll get to that, but just accountability is truly not there to punish people.
Right.
It's to bring people up, which is to your point, it is a great sign of love, care, concern for another human being and for them to achieve and to accomplish. I mean, I have no doubt that those are the elements and others that inspire you to do what you do and be the person that you are for people.
Go ahead, George.
Well, I was just going to say from a company standpoint and creating the environment.
Yep.
I think one of the things I've realized really early on is that there are ways in which we see the world. And a lot of people see the world especially in real estate, a lot of people will think and say things like, well, let me see how much I can save in regards to how I go about this business. How little can I pay, or how little can I actually do? And knowing that we have the power to control the way we think. Now, you may not be able to control the very first thought that comes into your mind, but you certainly can control it after the first thought. So first and foremost, it's really moving from a place of abundance, not necessarily how much can I save, but maybe, or how much little can I do, but how much more could I do? How much more could I earn? And knowing that we have the power to direct the way in which our minds work, it is this fundamental principle that I deeply believe in, and that is this: great leaders, just like this podcast, Dave, and I mean this sincerely, just like your job, my job, other agents, their jobs with their clients, their number one job is to get people to focus on the right stuff. So one of the most important elements of our company and the things that I do every day is to assist, to help. Jokingly, people say, "Does that mean yelling and screaming?" No, not necessarily. I don't do a lot of yelling and screaming, although I'm probably pretty bold and direct. And Dave, I think I may have mentioned this last time. Everyone thinks I'm like from the East Coast, and it's like, no, I'm just a Utah boy, man. But I am intense on principle. And the thing that is interesting is the principle is, man, let's focus on the right stuff. And so when we say we're going to focus on the right stuff, let's practice what we're in so many words preaching. Let's get an environment where we focus on the way we think, our mindset, our belief systems, the things we say internally, the things we even say out loud. What's the image we have of ourselves? What are the things we say about ourselves? Well, if you create an environment the way that you train and the way that you create that environment, which for us is, daily morning trainings, daily messages, coaching every single agent within the organization from the standpoint of accountability to helping them to, execute on their plans, their goals, and their dreams, and you start creating an environment that involves people. Here's the thing I've realized. So many individuals, or if we're speaking of broker owners and individuals, they focus on the 80% of the people who are selling less than 20% of the market. And when I was on a stage several years ago, there was 4,000 or 5,000 people in the room. I said, man, and they were broker owners. I said, stop focusing on the 80% of the people and making every decision you make based on the 80% of people who are selling 20% of the real estate. And how about you make a correction, which is I am going to now focus on the 20% of the people who are selling 80% of the real estate in this country. And I have to tell you, everyone clapped and cheered, because the reality is that even as owners, or there's so many people now, if you're building your own team, whether it's in the same state or you're multi-state or you have multi-teams, or Focus on the people who are going to do great things and sell a lot of real estate. So I've realized over the years is most importantly, get people to focus on the right things, but you better get the right people. And when they're not the right people, you better get rid of them, meaning terminate them, remove them. Stop with this mindset. Even if you're a team, have your own team. Don't be, well, they might do a deal one day. The impact of that person is so bad in regards to the growth of your own personal team, small or large, that you can't allow that to happen. So get really focused on who you put yourself around, and get really focused on what you focus on personally and what you let other people focus on. Your words have power. The things you say matter. The way you see yourself. And all of these things matter in relationship to where you choose to put your focus. And when you start to realize that you're in control, you're in the driver's seat, again, extraordinary things will begin to happen and will unfold, and you'll start to understand who you are, what you're capable of, and frankly, either how many deals you do, how much money you could earn. And I always say this to people, Dave, aren't you just curious as to what you could do? Aren't you just curious as to what's possible? Don't you just want to know, like, what could I really do if I stepped in, like we were talking about, accountability, mindset, discipline, skill sets, creating the right systems, build some technologies around you, drive your life with a deep sense of purpose. Man, what's possible for you?
It's refreshing to hear you say concentrate on the 20% and not the 80%. But we've seen in our business how the majority of these businesses, these brokerages, concentrate on the 80%. They concentrate on the numbers because they might do a deal someday. It's
just like, yeah.
Look, the main reason I walked away from my brokerage 7 years ago was because I didn't want to work with the people that didn't want to work, and I got myself stuck in a rut, and it was all my fault because I thought that way. Right.
Yes.
I thought that way. And if I had realized, when I finally realized, there were these agents that were doing 1, 2, or maybe 3 deals a year. They were leaving to go to these 100% companies. And you know what? I don't blame them because I wasn't giving them 100%.
Why would you? Because they're not putting in 100%.
No, I mean, they're not gonna really do it for themselves. I didn't blame them for doing that. But then I realized you know what? I'm in this rut. I got to get out. And that's why a lot of our business, a lot of the brokerages out there are broken. That system is broken. It was never any good, I don't think, because, people would come in and, when you were buying coffee or you were buying dinner or whatever, they would show up. You never saw them before,
Right.
But focusing, and this is where a great example of how successful you've been and what you've been able to do. You've created an environment where you're working with that 20%, and it makes the others want to be like that 20%. And if they don't want to be, they're going to leave, right? Or they're going to come.
Yep.
And really, it's a testament to you to creating the environment where those people are going to be taken care of. Because I will tell you that there was a lot of broker owners out there that told me you got your top producer, you leave them alone. You leave them alone.
Oh,
right?
You got to challenge those people. They're the very people who want to be challenged.
Right. And that was, and you know what? Look, I learned from so many mistakes, and I am so fortunate to be in a position now where I'm able to say, hey, look, if you don't want to do the work, I get it. I'm going to help you until we find that, you know what? We've reached a point of diminishing returns. It's not doing me any good, not doing any good. You need to find a different environment, because if the environment's not going to help you, you're in the wrong place. It's plain and simple. Like you said, if it's not going to work out, they're not going to do the business, get rid of them. But also, you created this cool environment where it helps with productivity. It helps with people having fun, being around other people that want to work. And finally, I'm in a position personally now where I work with those people. They all, like, everybody gives. It's collaboration.
They're hungry. They're thirsty.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Dave, can I just inject this? What just is screaming in my head is this. Lots of years ago, especially as we were building the organization in its infancy and different things like that, people would say things like, more on the outside of the company. Anyone who was inside knew that wasn't true, but they would say, George is so obsessed with making money. Okay, well, yes, I certainly, like anyone, I love money and then the things that it can do. And we, on another day, maybe we can talk about, the freedoms that money create and the choices that come from it, blah, blah, blah. That's not the point. The point is this, if what you are defining exactly, if you create within yourself more, if you become more than you were the day before, you will by just default earn more. The relationship between personal development and personal income is hand in hand. You want to elevate your income? Elevate you. And the only way you change your personal reality, or even if you want to say, how do you change your personality so that you can earn more? It is the way you believe, the way you think, the way you feel, and the things that you do. And when you get really clear on the idea for any of us that if we want more, we have to become more. And when those two things come into alignment, well, then the natural byproduct is you're going to earn money. But I just want to echo that I would say this, the most attractive people to me from the standpoint of just life and business are people who have their hierarchies in alignment. And what I mean by that is this: their integrity, their people, and then money. I'm going to put a slash here, power. When you move from a place, anyone who's listening to this, from a place of strive to do the right thing, strive. No one's going to do it perfect, but strive. Number two, put the people first. Because as you do that, the money always shows up. So the only way you can impact people from a place of integrity, and what is integrity? It is an integration of your mindset, your feelings, and what you do. And people go, wow, that's a person of integrity. What they think, what they feel, and what they do, all alignment. So striving to be doing the right thing, take care of the people, and then the money always shows up. And anytime those things get inverted or changed or switched around, it is almost always a negative experience. So remembering that, again, as we want to impact people so that we can earn more money, it starts with how we develop ourselves as a leader, as a human being, and hence the statement. We are a personal development company that happens to sell real estate. And the more, like you and I, focus on people, specifically our agents, well, the more we do that, the byproduct, the automatic is the more that they earn.
100%. And that, I mean, that was so great. What that really comes down to is what you and I need to do and what leaders need to do. And I'm going to say it, then add something to it, is our job is to lead, serve, and inspire, as well as educate, right? The people that we are involved with in our companies, that we're coaching, that we're leading, because we want them to take it to their business so that with their clients, with their customers, with other agents, that they learn to lead, serve, and inspire as well. Because I think you've said it, if not someone else did, we're teaching people how to become leaders, right? We're trying to be the example of leadership. Does that mean you get into the office early? I don't know. I always did. It didn't impress anybody. I didn't do it to impress anybody. I did because I had a lot of work to do. And I knew that I'd get a lot more work done between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. than I could between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. So I knew I would get a lot more work done, right? I didn't do it to impress anybody. But it took me a while to learn that no one's going to be impressed with when I show up. But a leader is how you show up. It's how you show up, how you level up on a daily basis to then give that over to the next people that you work, whether it's a client or whatever it is. We can be the tellers of everything, and you and me can ask agents and ask the people we're trying to help grow. We can tell them stuff, but how are they going to learn unless we get them to realize themselves by asking them the questions that they want to tell? Like I said earlier that, accountability, et cetera. And the one thing to know is what these people really want and use that in their favor in the accountability process. It's the same thing with our clients. It's the same with our customers. What do they want? How are we going to get them there in the greatest way? When we have a great environment to work out of, it makes it so easy because all the anxiety and the angst we get in doing our business, like prospecting. Because let's face it, I mean, there's not a lot of people out there that say, "Oh, I love picking up the phone and getting yelled at." There's nobody out. I don't know a lot of people
Right.
like. I know people that say, "I don't mind the phone at all." I know machines. I know a couple of people like that, but it's not like they just want to be on the phone. They just want to be on the phone. They're not the most personable people in the world either. So I guess you put those two things together.
Correct.
Environment is really important, and people actually don't think that's what they want, but they actually do. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, exactly. Look, anyone who's trying to, let's just be blunt here. Anyone who's trying to save expense, let's just say with whatever brokerage that they're with, if you're making a tremendous amount of money, you're not worried about your structure.
Right.
And so the thing that I've recognized over the years is, again, I kind of go back to that statement, which is maybe it's focusing on how much could you do versus how much could you save. And look, there's fiscal responsibility, right? From the standpoint of making sure that, if you need to survive, you're going to cut. But if you really want to thrive, and as an example, Dave, to you and to what you do from a coaching standpoint, if someone told me I could swipe a credit card and get me from point A to point B that much faster, and you're telling me I could swipe a card to speed up the process? Or an example, how many people have what we might call a traditional education, a formal education from a university or a college of some sort, and the amount of money that has been spent in relationship to that cost? Recognizing that if you want to elevate the game of real estate for you, invest in yourself. In the game of real estate, our greatest investment is ourselves. And the way in which we say things, and it's, like I've been married for 31 years, all right? And I am convinced at this point that it does not matter what I say, but I am for certain figured out at this point, and many years ago, that all that matters is how I say something. And sometimes we get fixated on scripts and dialogues and how someone says something, or what someone says. The key point, what someone says. But in the end, all scripts, all dialogues, all conversations have to do with how people feel when you have departed, or how they feel when you're there. And so for years ago, it just taken maybe just a small skill set, one of my favorite closes that really just over time, trial and error, I began to realize that people, even the most analytical people, make a decision based on how they feel. And people say, no, it's the numbers. No, it's how they feel about the numbers. And so for me, as I've gone through just all these different, listings over these many years and all these different moments of closing, just a simple question: how do you feel about what I've shared with you? How do you feel about working together? How do you feel about our company? How do you feel about getting started and taking care of some paperwork today? And I have found that every decision that people seem to make in their life is based on how they feel. And how they feel is based on how you say what you say. So we got to be really aware of who we are in the presence that we create when we show up. You can't fake it. If you're depressed and then walk into the meeting and go, hey, we are too intelligent, too discerning. Our intuition will take over, and people will recognize that this person really doesn't feel this way. And so again, whether it's the transparency of a real estate transaction sitting in front of a client, or whether it's you just driving down the street, I would challenge every single person, or invite every person, to really be the same person that's in front of the seller or a buyer, and the same person who walks through their front door, and recognizing that as you bring your light, your leadership, your knowledge, to your point earlier, love, and bring it to the table. Again, I go back to, boy, what could be possible for you? And The great look in the famous or the late words of the Zig Ziglar, it doesn't matter what you do in comparison to another agent. The ultimate measuring stick is what did you do? That Zig Ziglar said, what did you do in relationship or comparison to what you could have done? That's the ultimate measuring stick. So as you move through your life, recognizing the fact that your personal best is what's critical. And Dave, if you and I, I'm sure you would do this, but Dave, if you and I were walking down a trail in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, and a big grizzly bear, came out onto the trail, out of the trees, we both would look at each other, of course, frightened. And then all that would matter, this is how most people live their life. All that would matter, as long as you outrun me, you're going to be okay. And the reality is that how many times are we living our lives based on, well, I'm doing better than the other guy or gal? That is such a pathetic way to live a life. As long as I'm doing better than them, gosh, man, what again is possible for you in relationship to what did you do to what you could have become? And if I can just say this, hopefully I can get away with it. But I've appreciated a lot of at times, if you're familiar, even with an Ed Led and what he said, I really have appreciated. He always speaks to being a person of faith, and he says, "Man, my greatest fear is that I, in so many words, show up to meet my Maker, and He shows me either a vision or a movie, or standing next to me is the person I could have become versus the person I am." And he said that is my greatest fear, that the gap is too great. And I would just tell you that if any of us recognize our legacy, or you want to talk into the future after, if you're a person of faith, great. But either way,
right,
become the very best version of you. And when you become your best, man, there is some really powerful things that start to unfold in people's lives. Don't shortchange yourself. Don't shortchange your path of what's possible. Don't live empty. Live with purpose. Drive your life towards the life that you want to live by design, not by accident, not just that you were lucky, but you, just like the Babe Ruth, who would point out to center field or right field or left field and said, "Man, that's where the ball's going." And then crack, he'd hit it over the fence. He'd call his shot. So call your shot. Who you're going to become and what's possible, the deals you could do, the money you could earn, the lives that could be so richly blessed because you stepped into your greatest version of you.
Man, we could go on with so much of what you just said, but here's the most important point I think you just made, was that it's nothing until you make it, you call it what it is. You say what it is. And when you say what it is, have the discipline to fucking go get it. Sorry, but that's
yes.
There's nothing else.
Yes.
Man, this has been great. We could keep going on. There's so many things. Like I said, there's so many things I could get into and would have a conversation with you. But this has been a great conversation, man. I want to thank you so much for taking the time, being on here, and just this great conversation. It's just been fantastic. We put up George's Instagram and his contact information. Please communicate with him if you're in his area. This is a guy you want to work with. Notice I said,
come on and visit. Come to one of our meetings.
I said work with, and that's really, really important, right? Partnering up with this guy would be fantastic. For me, I've learned a lot, and it's great as I move along and talk to a lot of different people in this business because of this broadcast. I learned so much, and I selfishly ask questions that I need answers to, and it always augments what I do in my business on a regular basis. And I want to thank you again for being here. Just quick
you, Dave.
For next week, August 9th. We originally had Leo Perea scheduled, but Leo has had to postpone until the end of August. We'll have Jeff Bonk on. We're going to talk about navigating through everything that we've been doing, building your real estate business no matter what the forms look like. And Jeff is founder of the HBB Group here in Hoboken, New Jersey, and another great mind that we're going to talk to. So on that note, man, just hang out for a minute as we finish up. I got two things really quickly, and they're really important. One is, George, how do I help you grow your business?
Well, you're doing it. I have learned a lot today, Dave, and our conversation. I I have to tell you, I'm quite inspired, and I'm inspired to go make a bigger difference. And the only way that we do that, I'm reminded again of, okay, who do I want to become? And who do I want to be as a father? Who do I want to be as a friend? Who do I want to be in our community? Who do I want to be in this game of real estate that we all play in? And so I'm very, very grateful to have spent some time with you. And I've always appreciated everything that you've put out. You've always stayed close. And one of the things I've appreciated, Dave, about you is, no matter where you are, obviously we're different brands, different things like that, but you've remained a friend and you've championed anyone I see to becoming better than they were before. So thank you for who you are, how you can build my business, how you can help me. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks,
and keep
man.
doing the good things you're doing. And I'm excited to listen to not only you in future episodes, but I have to tell you, I'm going to go back to your library and start, downloading and listening, because I'm inspired by this. I think you've done an extraordinary job, and as well as anybody firsthand, the commitment it takes to bring this type of content and other things that you've done in a consistent fashion. Kudos to you, and kudos for you giving back and making a difference in the lives of a lot of people.
And man, that was really nice of you to say, and very, very kind words. Thank you so much for that. And last and certainly not least, man, I know you heard about the hat. It's coming out your way.
Thank you.
Another hat coming out to you. I want to thank everybody for watching today. We are really up against time. Thank you so much. George, just stay on for a second as we finish out. Next week, we got Jeff Bonk. Don't forget, just do your job, know your forms, know what you're doing. We'll see you next week. Hit it, Nelson.